What's up, everybody? We are back with an AI commitment graphic again. As you can see, we have our cutout of the athlete. Usually you want a couple photos, obviously the best, highest quality photos you can find of the athlete. For this instance, and for a lot of my recruiting graphics recently, I've been going the AI route and letting AI be a big part of my process. So I'm just going to kind of do a layer breakdown of what happened here. So what I did is I used an AI software to create this background image. Here it is without the cutout, which is pretty crazy looking. And I went through a lot of different options, a lot of trial and error, and this is what I came up with in the end. Basically just searching things like ram's head, crystals, blue, super high quality, 8K, hyper realistic, that sort of thing. Ram's head, ram's horns, diamonds, crystals, ice, and just kind of like a combination of all these things. And I had so many options to choose from. It was pretty tough to come to a final conclusion on which one to use. And then after spending like the whole day, I mean, there was a lot of like trial and error. It was one of the first times I'd used like heavy AI, but I didn't end up getting paid for the graphic, and the graphic didn't end up getting used. The guy never saw it, so it's not like he saw it and thought it was bad and didn't want it. He never even saw it. He was just like, oh yeah, the kid went with another graphic, so basically this one's not going to be used. So that's fun. So this is what happened. So I have this from the AI software that I used, and then this is actually from Photoshop. So basically I just used the generative fill tool to like create this floor and this bottom half of this background. So like none of this was here. That is all that I had, and I used Photoshop, typed in crystal cavern floor, as you can see right here, and this is what popped out. And again, I did a lot of different trial and error with this as well, but these are the two options I went with, and that is basically the bare bones of the graphic that I ended up making. So that was the beginning. Then we had our committed text. I've already made in the 3D software, obviously made it blue, or at least made the outline blue, and then made the inside of the text white. So that's the background. I put in some shading to go behind the text. So here, let me add the text back. These are all just different filters and stuff I used on it. So that's what it looks like, with the text. I obviously cut some of the text out, to go behind these horns, because it's actually, the layer is actually on top of the background. So tried to like set it down in this crevice, make it look like really three-dimensional with an exposure layer. So that's what that looks like. And then on the text, we have some inner shadows, a drop shadow, a hue saturation, just tweaking the color, curves layer, which I'm not even sure is doing anything, but all that just to like make sure that the text is fitting in with the background as best as it possibly can. I think there was like a weird outline on the text, so I added in this stroke or something. And then use this to, that is actually, I think, an inner shadow layer that is this blue color, or like the same color I think is the background. And what that's doing is kind of blending in the edges a little bit more with the background, because like this text right here is darker than this, and after putting this on there, it matches a little bit better. It's not perfect, but you want the darkest areas on this and the lightest areas on this to match the background. That's what makes it look like it fits in. And even now, honestly, to me, like, it still doesn't fully look like it fits in, but it's pretty close, and that's just what we want. So Then I added another shadow layer to give it some depth behind the ram's horns. That's just an exposure layer, just paint it in with a soft brush. You're just gonna put a low flow on it and just kind of like paint it in, through here and give it some depth. Then we have our cutout, and I kind of turned him a little bit, or rotated his picture a little bit to make him look a little bit more kind of straight on, straight up. And then we have some inner shadow layers on him. So color dodge and linear burn. That is just to darken the front side of him. So that's what it looks like full on. So that is because the light is coming from behind him. So he should be darker. Obviously, we're not going to make him that dark. And then this is that edge lighting. So edge lighting way up. So again, this is what it looks like without. Or with the right effects. So we have the harsh edge lighting because all of this light is behind him. And then in front of him, there isn't much light. So he just is supposed to look backlit to some extent. And that's what I did. So then I was like, all right, how far can we go with this AI stuff? So instead of putting shadows under his feet, I just put a box around his body. That is where the box is. You can see it with when I do control click on the layer mask. And I put a box down here over like his feet and the floor. And literally you can see it right here. I guess that's what I typed in, rocks, ground. So it just like makes it look like his feet are supposed to be there with the shadows, and then added in some rocks. I was kind of like wondering / hoping it would put some rocks maybe in front of one of his feet and make it look more realistic, but I mean, look how good of a job it did. Like, it looks to me like he's standing there. Like, it did a pretty good job. Added in some rocks. Obviously his cleats don't look the same as they did, but to me that doesn't really matter. Like, they look like cool. And as long as you're not like really particular about, or they're not really particular about like what cleats they're wearing and whatnot, I don't think that's that big of a deal. In this case, I don't think it would have been a big deal. But yeah, so that's all AI right there. Work smarter, not harder. So then we have some textures of just like smoke and that like frosty dust that you'll see in like cool places, I guess. Added in that, and that's just to kind of like, blend him into that foreground a little bit. And then we have his name text. So that is just a font with his name, white stroke. So we made that a smart object. And then we gave it a bevel and a drop shadow. That's what made it look like that. And then made that a smart object and gave it a gradient overlay where it's darker down here and lighter up top. And that is what the final name text looks like. I think this was just to make the top a little bit more UNC blue. It's kind of hard because UNC blue is like their actual UNC blue is ugly in my opinion. It's that like real baby blue, but they've been doing the more like almost aqua looking stuff recently. So, and I saw that in the pictures and I almost went like UNC blue, but I was like, no, that like aqua looks blue, or that aqua blue looks cooler, and they've been using that like in their recruiting and pictures and uniforms and whatever. So I was like, okay, I'll just make it the cooler blue. And so just use like some different hue saturations. This one is set to colorize, and that's just a soft brush painted in over these areas just to kind of give those crystals some pop. And then pretty much that same thing, just giving us some more blue glow with a soft brush right there, and down here. And then we did the apply image effect, and so when you do that, it turns out dark in the beginning. So I just painted that around the edges, put it to 50% opacity, and then I did another one. So I just duplicated that layer, set it to screen, which is actually what you're supposed to do for the effect. Put a 5 or a Gaussian blur set to 5 on that. And then just painted in what it looks like on this layer mask, a mustache man. Basically, I always just paint in where the lighting is, and just kind of like where I want the lighting to pop. So obviously all over these crystals, kind of on his outline, because that's just going to blend him in a little bit better to me. Down here where the light is kind of reflecting and showing through, and then up here along the edges where it's bouncing off the top. And we did one final color correction and put a color lookup over the whole thing, which, you know, it's not usually a bad thing to do, just to make the whole graphic come together. And then we just have the logo up at the top. And I actually used the other logo for the original graphic, but this logo is just cooler. So this will probably also be on the Patreon, so be on the lookout for that. This month is actually probably like one of the best months of Patreon graphics that I've put out in a while. So you may want to go check them out. I will see you in the next video.